Hey, business leaders. I'm excited about our topic today because it's one that I think every business leader has to address at some point. And that is how to pick a good IT company. Not a good IT company, an actual great IT company. After doing this for many years, we've seen quite a difference between what has worked in the past but only been good versus what is really great and really excites our clients today. So today I'm joined with Zachariah Collins. He was worked with me for about 3 years, and I wanted to get his input from his experience as well on this discussion. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So today I'm joined with Zach Collins. Zach, you work with me. You've worked with me for, years now. And so you have a lot of experience in just seeing what it's like in the back end of running an MSP. And so we're going to dive into just a few things that I think are worth discussing.
Yeah, no, I've worked with you now it's been 3 years. I don't even know where the time's gone, honestly. The thing about it is like I've worked with a lot of different companies, and I've worked for even a couple IT companies before coming here, just worked in IT at different companies. And there definitely is a difference between good and great. And, a lot of people might say, well, isn't that pretty close? The reality is that technology is one of those areas that has a big effect on your employees' happiness and the overall success of the business. Is at least in my experience.
Yeah, I would say that there's few decisions that a business leader will make that can have a bigger impact on their success than how the strategy they choose with their technology.
100% agree. So Matt, as you've worked in technology and you've worked with a lot of companies over the years, what have you found that a lot of companies need to take into consideration when they decide they want to choose a new IT company, and like what are those decision points they need to have?
I think there's a few factors, but the biggest thing is making sure that you're getting the right fit for what your company needs. So there's not one company that is so great that they should serve all companies. Like, I don't believe that exists. I think the fit is really important. And one of the things that I've found with, IT companies and their journey of growth and their maturity levels and how they expand is that every company has the ideal client that they provide the best value to. An MSP chooses to work with a really large company, they can really struggle delivering because they're a really big fish, in their pond. And the asks that come to them are going to be maybe more of a stretch because they've got so many more users and more variables that they're working with. So, and vice versa, if it's really small, it's hard for them to maybe put the same level of maturity that they do with their larger clients to some of their small clients. And so I find on both ends of the spectrums, although not that it can't work, but it's not as ideal than if you're in their sweet spot. So that'd be the first thing I would say is get to know the company that you're talking with and find out an example of what their clients look like and what success looks like, and see if you fit kind of their mold of what they thrive in. So that'd be the first one I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. Right sizing is very important, and I've definitely seen where that's been done well and not by a lot of different companies. And the downside is as a business, if you don't size the right company, that has an effect on your business. I've seen a lot of times where businesses have missed deadlines or they've had to spend more money or things like that because they didn't get the company. It was the right size for them. And then that delivery issues that came from that. I think another piece also to that as well is you need to find a company with the right approaches and the right processes, because not only do they need to be the right size, but if they don't have the right approaches and processes in place, so many things fail because of a lack of process or the lack of the right approach about going things. There have been plenty of times that I have watched the wrong process take a good thing and just completely mess it up because they just didn't have a correct process in place. And there's so much in IT that requires good process because you need to have clear steps to a goal.
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
And we've lived it. I was not a very good company in the earlier years. We struggled, and you'd bring on a big client, and the processes that seem to work just fine start falling apart. You find all the leaks because you've got a lot more demand, and all of a sudden the process you have isn't being carried out, like you would have thought. And then you realize you got to work more on process. So I think process is really key. I'd also say people in the right roles is really critical. And I think that's something that a business leader, if they learn to ask the right questions, can ask. So an example of that would be like, what are the services that they provide, and in their company structure, who are their leads and the people ultimately responsible to make sure those services are delivered. And if you get an answer like, well, everybody's responsible for that. Well, when everybody's responsible, it usually means nobody's actually responsible. And that's where things start to fall apart in the process area. You've got to have really good definitions of what success looks like, and you've got to be able to have people that are accountable for that. So that just has to be really clear. And the bigger the company grows, the more maturity that they have to grow in that. And if you're a larger company or you're growing to become a larger company, you need to match yourself with an MSP or an IT company that also has that kind of maturity.
Yeah. And actually something I would be curious to kind of, I think some of the people maybe listening to this video would find interesting is what kind of roles would you typically recommend those business leaders look out for? Because realistically, if you look at job titles, there's no rules to job titles. Anybody can have any job title essentially a company wants to create and give a name to. What would you tell a company and a business leader to look for when they're asking about the roles and all that? Like, what are the right questions to ask in that case?
Yep. So I think that's a really great question because pretty much all the roles that I know of either fall into proactive roles or reactive roles.
Sure.
And one of the things that you'll find when hiring is like people tend to fall into a proactive role or a reactive role naturally. So it has to do with how they hire their people in those roles and how they place them. So it's about getting the right people in the right roles and make sure, and that's one of the things you've got to be able to do is make sure that if you've got somebody in a proactive role that is more wired to be reactive, like they're not going to do very well. I'm going to give you an example of that. If somebody's highly proactive, you're going to find that they're going to be planned and they're going to have an idea of what their day should look like at the very beginning. They're more of your organizers. And if they're in a reactive role, that means there's going to be things lobbied into their day that they weren't expecting. It's going to throw them off, and that's really going to grate on them. Whereas somebody that's naturally more reactive, they'll adapt, they're flexible, they can make those last minute changes, they can catch those loose balls. I think that's really critical when the people are hiring. So when you're interviewing a company, you want to ask about those proactive roles and who are the people. A lot of IT companies don't even have people in defined proactive roles, especially. I find that actually more rare to see, meaning the person who's doing this proactive task, let's say it's some kind of maintenance that they're responsible for, they also respond to the alerts that come out of that maintenance. And then you've got them in two lanes, one a proactive lane, one a reactive lane, and you're always going to get mixed results in that. So just depending on the maturity of your business and what you need as a business aligns you to the type of maturity you need in your IT company.
Yeah, and I would agree. If you have people in those multiple roles or trying to jump back and forth, we've even seen in our own company as we've grown, like where we've had to, figure out, okay, what are all these different roles and who fits in them? But as soon as we get those roles lined up correctly, things just start working, things start falling into place, and it just goes.
Yep. I think at every growth point, you'll find different people in the business as the business grows, might be straddling a few lanes, and that's okay to get you to a certain point.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you're never going to be as efficient. They say when somebody is straddling different lanes like that, they're never more than 70% efficient. So that's another reason to eventually work your way toward dedicated roles with outcomes defined, and you can just ask a lot of questions when interviewing an IT company. To find out what that looks like. So you've got to go beyond just the list of services that they're going to tell you they're going to do to how those services are going to be deployed and how that's going to function. And that's where process comes in. I think that's the single difference between good MSPs and great MSPs is that great MSPs are really good at process. And so they're able to document their processes, which makes their work predictable and repeatable. So if you want predictable results, you've got to have some processes that support that. So that requires good development and documentation for that to happen. So anyone could jump in that role and get the same results. And that's really critical.
So you would recommend a lot of business leaders find out about, ask them kind of do you document your processes for doing different tasks or doing different things? Would that be a good question to kind of...
Well, I'd even go a question. What is your process for creating process documentation?
Sure. Yeah. Who's responsible or what are the...
Well, more than that of what does that process look like? So for us, it starts visual because people can see things visual. So maybe like a flow chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you get that defined, and then you can break that down into step-by-step processes. And so process, and then accountability goes with that too. So it's like what needs to be done and who's responsible to make sure it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Matt, you wanted to contrast the difference between a good IT company and a great IT company. What are the differences between them?
Well, I think we can probably go on quite a bit, but in general, there's some key differences that I think are worth mentioning. So one of them is I think a good IT company focuses on the tasks and the services that they're going to provide. I think a great IT company focuses on the outcomes and then reverse engineers what needs to actually happen. So they're constantly reinventing, re-engineering their lists, their processes based on what results they're seeing. Do you have an example of what you think would be a difference between a good IT company and a great IT company?
I do. A good IT company will help you deploy your business strategies. A great IT company, on the other hand, will actually help you develop and then deploy your business strategies.
I like that one. Because business strategy
Yeah.
is like what it's all about. IT is supposed to support your business goals and objectives. So that's a really great one.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of good IT companies sit between the client and their vendors to provide that communication, make sure there's collaboration. But a great MSP actually sits in the role of advocating on behalf of their clients.
I would agree.
In
Yeah.
that role.
Sitting on their side of the table, making sure that they speak for the client, because oftentimes, unfortunately, clients will run into situations where the vendor, especially in sales, will kind of say whatever, but the IT company, you as the IT company, can advocate and ask those tough questions that the client might not even think of.
And the only way to do that is to put yourself in the client's shoes.
Absolutely.
What would I do in this situation if I'm the client? You know, if this was my company and this is how my vendor was addressing the situation, you know, like how would I respond and how would I get results?
Do you feel like a lot of IT companies don't take the time to kind of put themselves in the client's shoes and really see things from the client side?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of IT companies out there will act just like any other vendor, you know, and there's finger pointing, you know, it's not our fault, it's your print vendor. They need to fix this, and they don't take ownership or responsibility. So if we're contrasting good and great, but then really poor IT companies, I think the ones that point fingers, you know, would be an example of that, of a poor company.
So a good IT company might say, you know, we can, you know, we'll help, but I think this is your other vendor. Whereas a great IT company might say, let's actually sit down, schedule some time with one of your vendors, and let's just get this solved.
Yep.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's a focus on results.
Yeah.
Like what is the results we're going for? How can we help get there? So another one that I see a lot in our industry is a lot of IT companies are very professional. A lot of good IT companies are professional. Absolutely. And they provide, you know, good services. But there's something different when you have an IT company that really cares, specifically cares about your success. And that's where there's a lot more collaboration and working together. And I think it only makes sense because if an MSP really cares about you as the company's success, and they benefit from that. You know, if you grow, they grow. Like it's a very mutually beneficial relationship when you're in that seat. So that's another one I think is really important. Just take time, care, and listen.
And I've seen that, whether it's a vendor or it's another IT company, that difference of like, you can tell when a vendor actually cares about their client, whether your vendor is another IT, you know, it's an IT company, or it could be a vendor of any kind. But when you see that relationship where the vendor client relationship actually involves caring about the success, then that's where you see a growth and a really solid relationship that benefits both sides, and really in the long run, both grow.
Yep.
That's a good relationship right there.
I
Both
think
grow.
No matter where you are in your growth and your development, like finding somebody that you can have that kind of relationship in IT is critical. It's probably the most important vendor relationship you can have.
Yeah.
Because the level of trust that is needed in that relationship is staggering. Your IT is going to have access to the keys of the kingdom.
Absolutely.
Like every department, every system. So the level of trust is really good there, and they need to be able to care enough about your business and your success to help you get there. Yeah.
Would you say that a lot of times if trust breaks down between an IT company and their client, then that regardless of what the contract says, essentially the relationship's over?
Yeah, I would say, you know, a contract or an agreement is never the money or the value.
Yeah.
It's just what's in writing, so everybody remembers what we were going to do and what services need to be delivered. But the value in the money exchange always happens from the services that are being delivered. And the results, the assumption is that there's going to be results, that you're going to be really happy with those services. So I really think focusing on those results is critical.
So, Matt, as we're on the topic of client trust, which is the core of any good business relationship, how does that play into good versus great in a relationship and in a company?
I almost don't know if it's good or great. Like, it's essential. Like, it is probably the most essential quality is that you have a company that you're partnered with that you can trust. In the interviewing process, it's like courting, right? You're getting to know each other. And the whole part of the whole thing is like, okay, do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Is this somebody I feel like I can work strategically with? You know, because you've got a business and a lot riding on it, and you want to see that grow. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I think picking the IT company and the strategy that goes along with that is the most critical. So at the end of the day, I think the trust is something that has to be demonstrated, and it has to be a core behavioral value of the company that you're working with. So it's not just that you're talking to, the salesperson or the owner of the IT company and building that trust. You're hoping that he's also doing that with his team, and he's conveying to the team the importance of trust. Like everything, this is what I tell my team. I tell them everything we're doing at the end of the day is designed to build trust.
So Matt, today we've talked a lot about the different qualities that make the difference between a good IT company and a great IT company. Can you kind of summarize a little bit of just what those are again for everybody, so we have just kind of a quick summary of all the points?
Okay, so if you're a business leader and you are either evaluating your current IT company or potentially making a change, there's a few things I would look for to make sure you have the right fit for your business. The first thing is that you have the right size company. You want to be in the IT company's sweet spot. Second one is that their approach to IT, their philosophy and how they deliver results match what you need, and that they have the processes to support that. Next, I would say that they have the right people in the right roles. So I would ask them about their structure and see what that looks like. So ownership and accountability, make sure that's in place. I would ask a little bit about their values, see if their values match what you're looking for. I think that's really important. And then ask some questions about outcomes. I would ask a lot of questions about outcomes. What does success look like to them, and see if that matches what you're looking for. I think if you do those things, you're well on your way to finding a good IT company. Well, everyone, thank you for taking time to watch this video. I hope you found it informative and helpful. And if you are in a position where you're looking for a new IT company, and you happen to be in Colorado Springs or the surrounding area, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. You can go to steppingforward.tech and click on the chat with Matt button, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. We'll see you in the next video.